Hey, Teen Summers, we are here with Karleen Savage. Karleen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're
And now,
excited to have you.
Karleen, there's lots of things that I'm excited to talk to you about, but the first thing that struck me as we were greeting you today is that how old are your children?
I love it. My oldest is 42 and my youngest is 29.
You're lying. There's no
I
way.
see you didn't know that.
No way.
I've been dying ever
You're
since your
both.
face popped up. I'm like, this is gonna be
So
This is
great.
not her. I
I
know.
want your vitamin regimen and I want it now because there's no way. Wow,
It's
good
so
for you.
funny. It's so funny because, when I walk in rooms and I'm there, like I just met with somebody yesterday and she's the same age as I am. And she goes, I don't know if you understand what it's like to be the age I am. And I'm going, we're the same age.
Well,
I
you are doing something right. So for whoever doesn't see
can't
visual
see the
right now,
visual.
Karleen is rocking the young age. Let me tell you. So
Thank you so
Definitely
much.
too. Yeah, when she
yes.
had this. And it's similarly at a playground last week, I overheard some mothers, they were, oh, my having this pregnancy in the second half of my 30s and like we had our last baby, he was 48. And I'm thinking like, oh, you have no idea. I swear that they keep us young and you are proof.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to seriously, you have to look at the gifts that they are to you later on and go, okay, just filter out some of their other stuff, but drink up the good stuff, right?
That's so true. That's so true.
Well, you have a little bit of I mean, you have a couple of things you work on, but obviously you have a pretty popular viewed TED Talk about conflict resolution between spouses. That's something that'll be interesting to me and Jamie and our audience because we all have that and all want to resolve. So
Well, first, and before we go into that, you're qualified for this because you trained in hostage negotiations, right?
Well, I'm a conflict resolution expert. That's where I have my master's. I have my master's in conflict resolution and negotiations. Um, and then I loved it so much. I went to work as a mediator and had really good success there because I understood how it really works now. And so then I loved it so much, I went into hostage and crisis and got certified in both of those. Um,
wow.
and then I did my TED Talk and just common themes that happen among those three fields.
Yeah.
Resolve these arguments that we have every day.
So
So
which was tougher, hostage negotiation or couple negotiation for you? Or was it about the same?
I was just thinking, just doing this whole business thing, rearing a family, that's pretty tough. That's tough stuff. You don't have a support system there. And so, people are out here doing podcasts like you guys, trying to help people to find their support system. And because it is rough waters out there, when you're doing hostage, just to give you some background, when you're doing hostage, you have a team of people. It's not, you're
Mm.
not doing this solo. So
Yeah.
when, you can tap out, you can say, I can't do it. You're not necessarily the one talking to the hostage taker. When you're in crisis, when you're working the crisis lines, there is a whole team of people that are doing resource checks and following up and listening in and telling, giving you feeds, and they're prompting you, here's things that you can say, and here's things that you can do. Why don't you recommend this? And it's a very busy network happening behind the scenes of these things. So we, like I said in my TED Talk, uh, you know, there's no safety net here. So I do think it is a tough job out here when you're trying to do this gig of family, and heaven forbid you decide to, be bold and go entrepreneur and family. And
Yeah.
then you have a relationship, an intimate relationship on top of that. I mean, just shut the door, just go, okay, this is a big basket I took.
Wow. And now, Karleen, you bring up a great point about like resources, right? Like when you're in a true hostage or conflict negotiation, you have resources and as a team or professionally. But now when we're in a conflict together, the resources all have to be interior, right? And you, man, that's an ass load of accountability, if I could
That's
be
a
very
crapshoot.
honest.
It's a crapshoot. At least for me, it was a crapshoot. Every day I wake up, it's like, what's going to happen today? Because I don't know how much oh, if you watch the TED Talk or at all or not, I've had a husband with a brain injury for 3 decades. And then I was rearing a family. And then I was doing business. And then I was going, I don't know how to do this. I
Yeah.
can't figure this out, because you're right. It was just me. And then he was the other party, which wasn't always, didn't always grasp things the same way. His personality changed. He didn't understand me the way he used to. He didn't remember us the
Wow.
way I used to. And then when we dealt with our kids, he didn't understand some of that. And I'll just as a insert here, finally got him on a medication that was helping. And he took the medication, and they said, it'll take a couple weeks, and it took a couple days. And what was interesting, and I don't share this story very often, but what was interesting is a couple days later, he goes, Karleen, am I supposed to be someplace today? And I said, what are you talking about? And this was 16 years after his brain injury.
Wow.
And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, I feel like I'm supposed to be on a plane, or I'm supposed to be someplace. Where am I supposed to be? And I said, that was the day of your accident.
Wow.
You were on a plane and you were doing business meetings and you got hit. And he said, oh my gosh, I feel like a fog is rolled out of my head. And everything changed. But then here's the interesting thing. Then we, he gets up, we're out, the kids are walking around, and he goes, Karleen, who are all these big people in this house?
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
you have to keep in mind, he's been there 24/7 since his accident.
Mm.
And he said, who are all these big people? I said, those are our kids. But where are you? What's what? And he goes, no, those aren't my kids. My kids are only this tall. And that was 16 years before. When it happened, his kids were only this tall. And I said, no, so it literally, when he took that medication, it brought him back into today, but he was actually living 16 years previous. And so when you talk about trying to do business and trying to do family, and the arguments that happen back and forth, compare it to hostage and crisis, this is a crapshoot. When you take on those choices, it can really, how far are you in on this is really the question. And that's what moved me to go and get educated and trained, was because it was, how far are you in on this, Karleen? How, that whole sickness and in health, that whole thing, how far are we really in?
Wow.
And that I had to really, had that come into Jesus moment and go, okay, put your money where your mouth is, Karleen, where are you? And so I went on that whole journey and got educated, and really epically has changed everything I do and how I work in my intimate relationship and my relationship with my kids and business, all the things. So anyway.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
Karleen, I
that's-
really admire you and I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm really proud of you, because I think that that's an example of endurance in a time in which, our society is really throwaway right now. And I think that people often choose to not, like you said, go, how deep am I in it? Am I in? So I think that's a beautiful example for your children and for others. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that, yeah.
What was the, from being able to negotiate I'm sorry, not negotiate, resolve this kind of conflict, even when your husband couldn't completely grasp it? Like, what was the one thing you would, if you had to impart to someone right now saying, I'm going through something similar, is there like one like cardinal law that just helped get you through this, or aha principle there is? Okay.
What a
Or
great question.
list of them.
What's that?
Or a list of them, I think, is it
Well,
5 points?
it started in one point, and for me, and that is being willing, and it's going to be light, and you're gonna, okay, in anticipation of the answer, you're sitting there going, oh, this is gonna be a heavy lift. This is gonna be epic. This is gonna be that mic drop moment. The one thing that changed everything for me, for my husband, and how I deal, and epically changed our relationship, was my willingness to learn who he is, what he is, where he is, how he processes, what he feels. And that comes down to the curiosity that I talk about in the TED Talk. It comes down to curiosity is not about ladder climbing. It's not about strategizing the win. It's not about getting the close. It's not about any of those things. Curiosity, if you want to make it work, is truly about learning. It's being an exceptional learner. So when you sit down with a sparring partner or anyone, when you sit down with a sparring partner, are you there to learn? Are you there to point out the wrongs? Are you there to defend your position? What are you there for? If you are not there to learn, then you're always choosing sides. And it's just a matter of who's going to level up and who's going to make the better point, or who's going to take the harder stance, or who's going to be the most intimidating in the moment, or who's going to have the deal breaker comment. But for me, I want you to understand, people with brain injuries, their relationships, only 2% of those relationships last in a brain injury situation.
Wow.
So when you're looking at that kind of a situation, we're salmon swimming upstream, and I don't know what happened to my light just now, but
You still look
great.
you still look good.
okay. Anyway, it's that moment of, you're a salmon swimming upstream, and I had to go to the table and go, you didn't choose me. This new guy, he didn't choose me. And I had to start asking the questions. What do you want? How does it look? What is your future? Now imagine you two do remember each other, and you two do know each other, and you do remember a history. In that situation, why aren't you having that conversation? Why aren't you saying, how do you process? What is important to you? What do you want? Now, now that we're in this 5 years or 10 years, what do you want today? But we don't ever do that again, not very often, or unless our marriages or our relationships are just devastated, then we go to the table and do that. But what I learned is that you do that first. You do that always. You do that consistently, and you win. Because now they hand you the what do you call it, the crystal ball. They hand you the crystal ball of how to work with them. And how come we're missing that message? They handed me, so in every situation, they handed me the crystal ball. In a lot of situations, we don't even ask for the crystal ball. So if I come to you and I say, hey, man, I really want to work with, 18 summers, and what's important to you? What does it look like? And then I truly make the decision, gosh, we're not a fit, but how can I help? Or it's learning about them. That it would be my most profound moment that I realized hard. And I realized, man, I've never done this on an interview.
That's okay.
We have that effect.
But I realized in all my right, and all my rightness, and all my correct movements, and all my integrity, because I was doing the thing right. I wasn't cutting corners. I wasn't trying to cheat a system. I wasn't trying to, sugarcoat anything. And how much I was right, I realized I was getting it so wrong. I couldn't have been more wrong. I gave this man no honor. I gave him no position, because here that you screwed up, or you have a problem, or you have a limitation, a disability, whatever it is. And so therefore, I'm going to step up as the champion. I'm going to be the defender. How many of us go through and go, I am a rock. I am the person they can lean on. I am that person. And maybe that's not what they want. We don't know.
Mhm. Wow,
So-
Karleen, thank you for sharing that. And I wonder, as you talk, you know, being the, I mean, I hate to use the word because you just said, oh, I beat on my chest and stand there, you know what I mean? That's not what you're supposed to be. But I mean, really and truly, you were the rock. You had to be the consistent one for your children, and you had to be the consistent one for your husband. And you truly did have to be the rock in that
Yeah.
situation. And now, how did that feel? Did you ever feel lonely being the rock? Did you ever feel like, wow, I am championing this situation, but like, who champions me? Did it?
So I love that, Jamie. Number one, don't mistake that we do that pounding on our chest. I can do this. I am that. And I know my position, but I am that because I do curiosity. I am not that without it.
Okay.
I am that because I learn about somebody and I know which things to do to help. That does make me powerful, a rock. A lot of people misunderstand that. That is empowering. I can walk in a room and give everybody what they want. I know how to do that because I know how to be curious and ask. So yes, but the thing is that I was pounding my chest before I learned all this. I was pounding my chest as a defender, I'm going to do all this, and that's me. And we say that like, don't ever mess with the mama bear kind of thing. We always say those kinds of things, but the truest power is coming through willing to learn. That is the truest power. So that is what I would say first to that. And is it lonely? Oh my gosh, let's not make this about that. Is it lonely being a business owner? So yes, right? Is it lonely, even lonelier being a successful business owner? Is it lonely being a top athlete? Is it lonely being a top pianist? Is it lonely being the best ballerina? It is so lonely because you're choosing to be different than others. You're choosing to act different, to put your head down when others are putting their head up. You're choosing to serve when other people are looking to take. You're choosing all of that. So yes, I have two sons that are high-level soccer players, or they were. And my one son was top 100 in the nation. He traveled and his sponsor was Nike. And so, but we came out of Idaho, and you don't get champions out of Idaho. Okay. Not athletic champions, at least not at that time. And it hadn't been for decades. So when they were coming up, when we would go to soccer fields, I was curious. Hey, what do you want? How do you, how successful do you want to be? What's the interest here? And we dialed in and we got it figured out. And then it was like, okay, are you willing to pay the price of it? This is what it looks like. This is the cost. Are you willing to do that? So then they said, yes, yes, yes. So my son at 16, he was playing on the U18 men's, and he had Nike as a sponsor. When you are doing something like that, it is lonely because all the other players that you're with on a daily are competitive, but they don't want that. They still want to go out on the dates, and they still want to get the new car, and they still want to do all these things. And my sons said, no, we'll do dating, but only if it fits. It wasn't their top priority. And so is it lonely? Yes, but I think it's lonely for all of us that are doing something unique and desiring and forward thinking. I think it's lonely for everybody that wants something unique. So I just happen to want business, family. I wanted a relationship with my husband. I wanted that. I wanted it to the point that regardless of what made sense, because a lot of people would look at me and look at my life and go, what are you doing? That's crazy. What are you staying for? This guy doesn't even, and they would give me all sorts of reasons, possibly. And they'd certainly look at me and justify it. Say, absolutely, girl, you go, be strong, head on out. but I wanted something unique. I wanted him. I wanted this man. And because I know who he is, and I know how I can bring that out because I know how to be curious and learn about him. And just think about this. I don't know, Jim, just let me ask you this moment, because
Sure.
my husband is an alpha, and brain injury or not, he's an alpha. But when you go in and somebody wants to know about you, and they're sitting there talking to you and going, what do you think? And how do you feel about this? And wow, I see your skills as this. And and how does that feel when I say it? And what is it, what are you going to do? And I think you're capable of all these things. Doesn't matter any limitations. I've got limitations too, but when you start talking to somebody as you're learning about them and you
Yep.
start focusing on their capabilities, does it not feel good?
Yeah. I think curiosity is very disarming. Authentic curiosity.
Authentic curiosity. Yeah. Well, for this, because there's an authentic curiosity when you're a ladder climber, when you're in the corporate world and you want to be a VP, there is a genuine curiosity. It's just not this one.
Gotcha.
That makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Person to person curiosity. That makes sense. And now, Karleen, I can't help but create a silly little connection between having a husband with a brain injury to like teenagers, because truly it's like they think they know what's going on. They have no idea what's going on. They're headstrong. Like, I can't help but feel like this was a natural progression for you to go from this, situation with your husband to now, pioneering some encouraging. You have a book, The Confident Teen Blueprint.
Yeah, I have a book at The Confident Teen Blueprint. I used to run a women in business networking group. I grew it from 12 members to 4,000 members.
Wow.
I mean, it's all there. The confusion that we go through and teens, it's not necessarily, so I'm going to stay in the flow of our conversation. Teens is a whole shift of minds, but they have so much hormones running through them. So it's like, I get it. You're crazy, but you don't know it yet.
There's a bit of like, right, same with the brain. There's a bit of irrationality,
Yeah.
a bit of like, I don't know. I feel we have one of our older sons had a traumatic brain injury, and he wasn't the same person. And we're very grateful that we were able to quickly get him care. And
when did that happen? How old was he?
17.
17.
How old is he now?
He'll be 19.
19 soon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So it was a
doing
big
well.
year.
It was a big year.
Big
It
year,
was like
big car accident, and but yeah, you have to.
But it was
So
different.
I hit that and I didn't even know. So it's like, that's really a topic that, resonates with you guys and you guys get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we did a whole podcast on it because it was so life shifting, but then also we went deep into, much as yourself, education, research, commitment, really going all in on it. But I will say having teens, like I guess a stereotypical teen, but we had a teen with a brain injury. So I had a comparison because our first son was a teen before that one. And just the idea of like, he was irrational and it was harder to reach him. And there was just such a difference. And it did oftentimes feel like I was negotiating with a new person, or communicating with a new person. And, it's so interesting how I can truly see how those things relate.
Yeah. Wow. Good for you. It's admirable. And it's so heart-wrenching. I get it.
Yeah, it's wild. So tell us more about your book while we are now talking about teens. I'm excited to learn. So is this, as I'm seeing it, this path, your husband, and then you moved into the education no, I mean, what was the path, your hero's journey of you started in one spot, was your husband first, and that was a catalyst for your confident teen blueprint, or did it all kind of culminate together?
It's interesting how you can look back at your life. I mean, I'm older than you guys, but you look back at your life and you go, I was built for it. I get it. So I just think it was part and parcel to what I was supposed to do. I was doing kids, have been doing kids for 40 something years. My husband's had his brain injury for about 30. Um, and so I feel like I got really grounded and people were always asking me questions like, why do your kids still kiss you goodbye? That's kind of cool. My kid won't even come near me.
Mhm.
Why does your daughter, tell you her secrets? I can't even get mine to talk. Um, and they seem like they sit next to you and that's weird. My child will go sit and so it was those kinds of questions that I was getting all the time, but I wasn't just getting them. I was getting them, meaning they were like, Karleen, tell me how you're doing this. That's not working for me. So what happened is that I started talking, because I was young and younger and I started talking and telling people and then they would percolate on it and come back and go, you know what, that only works for you. And I thought, okay, that's cool. Do your thing. Um, and so here we are, 40 something years later, and people are still asking because my kids still come around and my kids still speak very kindly. And they love their dad, a man who doesn't remember them the same way. They love him. They go, we understand, but we love him and he's important. And they do the same thing with me. So people are still asking, how are you doing it? And so I thought, you know what, I'm not going there because I know how this happens. And so I said, I'll put it in a book. And so all I did was just put, here are the 3 things that you need if you want to build confident teens. This is what you need. You can start it anywhere. You can course correct at any time. But this is what is needed. And I came by way of that by going, people are always asking. Here I have a husband with a brain injury now. How did I do it with him? Same thing. Oh gosh, same thing. And then I got my master's degree and I went, oh my gosh, same thing. How is that working? Now I got things wrong. And getting my master's, all that did was point out all the things I was getting wrong. And I could course correct it, right? But anyway, so that's kind of how that came to be. So it's the 3 things that you need as parents to have confident teens. It's just basic. And I did it on my own 7. And then we've had about 12 other teens live with us at one time or another for short stints and long stints.
Wow.
I use the same stuff with them. And so, if you really want the answers, I mean, you can use these. That's kind of where I'm at with that book.
That's great.
Beautiful.
I know we've been told the biggest compliment is, our company is called 18 Summers, make the most of those first 18 years and they'll come back for more, and also, but it changes too. So soak up that time when you have them under the roof and everything. But I remember someone telling us the biggest compliment you can get is your adult children still want to hang out with you. Like
Yeah.
that's, and so, I mean, that is like, you want to talk about cause and effect. You've hit the nail on the head because you're getting that effect that so many people desire. They just don't get. We hear the same thing. Like, what do you pay them to come around? Why are they here again? And it kind of surprises, you go, well, no. I just love to hear a story like that because it is the biggest compliment. And I remember when
I
someone said
agree.
it to me.
100% agree. That's what I used to say when they were young. People would say, oh my gosh, you're such a good mom. And I'd go, you know what, hold that thought until these guys get grown. And it's not to say, I want people to understand that hear comments like this. I want them to understand it's not to say there isn't challenge.
Right.
When they start choosing companions, their companions have an opinion about things and they want to say, and how do you navigate that and still stay close? In-laws, that whole dreaded word of in-laws, when you become in-laws or they have in-laws, how do you help them navigate that? How do you stay with your scope wide open and without dialing into, I want to protect? How do you do that? And
Yep.
that's so yes, greatest compliment ever is when they can turn to you. And so my 40-something-year-old daughter texted me and she goes, I just want you to know, I know that we've gone through some hard times. She goes, but I have used you have been you've been the greatest mom. And I've used what you have taught me in my own family. I cannot thank you enough. And so those are the things that you go, gosh, was it worth it? Ah, yes, I hope so. I hope that she feels lifted, that she gets what she needs, and that she spreads that for
Yeah.
her own family. Yeah.
Karleen, you've talked about, these positive things of building your confident teens. Now you reference some unwanted baggage. Tell me about that, the unwanted baggage of building your.
And this goes, because you guys are doing 18 summers, this goes to any background. When you make that decision, I want to have confident teens. We're going to talk about it through that vein, although this applies to everything you choose. When you want confident teens, the unwanted baggage or the cost, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to accept the cost? You go into an expensive gallery. Are you willing to shoulder the cost? When you have people move that expensive piece of art, are you willing to shoulder the cost? What is that cost? That is what I'm talking about this baggage that people deal with. People think, oh, confident teens, yep, you're just one of the lucky ones. You figured it out, you got there. And I'm going, no. Do you know, if you knew how unlucky I was, so much unlucky stuff. But the cost is, if I want confident kids, am I willing to shoulder that cost? And here's some of the cost. Are you willing to let them be lonely?
Wow.
Because to be a top athlete, they have to be willing to stand alone. And have the ridicule, and have people try and drag them down, and have people, size them up, and have people misbehave, and have parents get in their face about, you can't play that hard against my son, or you can't do anything like that. Are you willing to let them stand alone? That's a big price. Most parents are going to struggle with that cost.
Makes sense.
So then we say, you can achieve everything you want, as long as it's no pain to me. Because if I see pain on you, I'm going to come in like Mama Bear, and I'm going to take care of it. And you can't. What you have to do is help them get curious about their moments, start learning about their moments, start deciding where they stand, start helping them understand, what is your principles? How do you believe in that? What does it mean to you? Is that the one you want? Do you need to change that? Are you willing to let them stand alone? Another one is, are you willing to expect out of them? You want to achieve this? I'm going to expect. Now, if you choose not to do it, I don't have a problem. There's still consequences, whatever. But are you willing to hold them accountable? So my one son says, yeah, I want to do this. And, I want to be the best at this. And so one of the things was running. He had to do good at running. And so I said, okay, well, let's go do some research, find out who the fastest runners on the planet are. That's your goal. That is the goal. Now, do you want to achieve it or don't you? And he said, yeah, I want to achieve it. Now, in my mind, it's like, okay, I don't think I don't. But to him, I'm like, okay, then here's the things you have to do. So we literally, here's one thing, I got in our van, because we had so many kids, got in our van, I put him on a street, and I drove the van next to him. I said, you have to run as fast as I drive. That was just one of the things. And so he did it, and he did it. And what is so incredible is this kid is now 34. He runs 22 miles an hour.
Wow.
Even at 34.
Holy
cow. He became this disciplined. Another thing that I did with him is, with our kids is this one in particular is, you get tired on a soccer field. You're running miles and miles on a soccer field during a game, and they were never subbed out. So they were the whole time, and you get your 10-minute break in between, right? And so they would say early on when they were teenagers, like, I get tired out there. And so understanding, what is your goal? What do you want to do? The expectation now is there. So I would say, okay, but here's the deal. the deal is this is what you want to achieve. So now what you need to do is you need to forget about that pain, and you need to remember your body already knows how to run. Let it go into autopilot. Your legs already know how to move. Don't worry about feeling them. Just do the motion and it'll happen. And then they would get to the point where they could lock it out. So you want confident teens, there is a price, whatever that is. And I don't know what that is for everyone, but it's lonely and you need to expect something out of them to help them be confident. Now, the other thing is that when you do, it will be a hard tug of war. It'll be that moment. You're going to go in closets and you're going to go, come on, I know you can do this. Come on. Your face or, your demeanor when you're face to face with them is, you got to do it. This is what you want. If this is what you want, I'm standing with you. I'm here. But then behind closed doors, you're going, oh my gosh, what did I do? Oh, it's too hard. And then what will happen is they will begin to hold their own confidence because they go, oh my gosh, I can run. So my son, 34 years old, came home and he goes, oh my gosh, I'm running 22 miles an hour. I was just tested by a sports group. And he says, this is insane. You hand them their confidence, you lay the platform, and then they pick it up and go, this is mine. And then that's when you see things like, oh my gosh, I went from an F to a B in a month. I want to do this again. That is and then you go, there it is. It's all yours. And then you build, you groom, and you rear that confidence because now they know how it feels. You had this hard price that you had to pay together. But now you handed them something, you go do it. So like, one of them is like, so my kids look like models, like no joke, dark features, just gorgeous, stunning. And they look like models. And so, my one son's like, he's got all this confidence and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so blah, 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 blah. And so I have to check it, he's at 30 years old and he goes, and so I check, just in fun, I check it and I go, you have to remember, I made all that. So honor the gift. You have to know how to honor the gift. And that's another price. Are you willing to check that with your children at any age, teenagers specifically, but at any age. And then you have to use that. So anyway, lots of answers.
That's great. To just echo that, I actually was listening to something else today and it said, we're in a society now that doesn't allow kids like the next generation to be winners. We give everybody a participation trophy. We tell everybody that they're great. We tell everyone that it's possible, and it truly isn't. And I hear what you're saying as like, well, I guess it is possible, but you have to push them. You can't, there's no sympathy clap. There's no, so there are things that go into training, or building the confidence, because truly, if they get participation awards, that's not confidence. That's like, oh, well, everybody got that trophy. What would I do?
Interesting is they'll make a comment about it. If you listen to them, they'll make a comment about it. I mean, I have a 4-year-old grandson that lives with me. And he looks around, he's already seen who's here, who's there.
We get it.
He's already got a natural pecking order happening in his own mind. So how are we going to feed that? How are we going to use that and say, yes, you can have that, but you honor that. Do you know what I mean? You can have that because he's very tall for his age. So yes, you can overpower people in your own age group, but how are you going to use that? And so you can start anywhere to do that. So yeah, we are in a society that's kind of, grooming for that. And I,
not the way.
I groom that everybody is a champion. I do believe that they are all gifted and whole, and we need to honor and respect that. How they show up is their choice. And then we work with that. That's what I work with. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Karleen.
Yeah,
where's your book?
Yeah,
How
where
can we find it?
You? We want to make sure people can find you.
Sure. Yeah, my book is karleensavage.com/parents. And you can go there, fill out the little name and address or name and email, and you can have the free digital download of my book.
Oh, awesome.
Great.
Yeah. So just go and get the digital download. I do offer classes where I teach you the 3 things. We talk about those. We talk about what I share on my TED Talk. I do all of that in courses too, but go get the free digital download. You can have
Oh,
that.
that's so generous. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing vulnerably and for bringing wisdom to us and our audience today.
100%.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. My pleasure.